Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, and it is week number 4 of my reviews at midnight. And this week, I bring you David Gordon Green's 2018 Halloween. This is, of course, the early blue that was released, and the artwork's pretty cool. Of course, this film sees the main return of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Judy Green as Karen, her daughter, and Andi Matichak as Allison, the granddaughter, and James Courtney, of course, plays the Shape. And also returning to do the score, John Carpenter, and his son, Cody, who helps on this score, is pretty awesome as well. The cinematographer, the guy who shot it, no, it's not Dean Cundy, unfortunately, but it is one Michael Simmons, who's most notably known for Paranormal Activity Part 2. He doesn't do a bad job. I actually appreciated the work of the cinematographer Rob Zombie's 07 reimagining or remake, however you want to label that. I thought that film was shot spectacularly much better, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Let's see here. Halloween 2018. Plot, real quick. We're supposed to ignore the entire franchise with the exception of the events of the 1978 film. And for the last 40 years, Michael has been incarcerated. Laurie has been preparing for the inevitable, for fate, as you would. And that has brought much cost in terms of her family, 2 failed marriages, a bad relationship with her daughter, the granddaughter who does everything she can to try to mend Laurie. But Laurie's been preparing, and she spent her entire life post those traumatic events of this 78 film preparing for the inevitable. Michael, of course, has, I'm sure, been preparing for the inevitable as well. And we have a couple British journalists / podcasters who are doing a story on Michael Myers and sort of a re-examination of those events and the man himself, and really trying to put a human caricature, I guess, on him. And really, and that's maybe part of the struggle in this film, is you have this give and take between, early on at least, is he but just a man, or is there something else? And of course, the original Halloween, he is like that unstoppable force of nature with no explanation. It's what makes, in a sense, the boogeyman scary as all can be, right? The complete and absolute randomness. And of course, not to take away anything from Rob Zombie's vision, his, though, has everything square right down in nurture. It's how Michael was brought up, and of course there's a whole complete vision in those 2 films right there. But what this film attempts to do is bring it back in a way that makes Michael what Michael was in the golden era of Halloween and all those movies. So we're gonna deal with this. But so anyway, so that's basically we're gonna have a transport's gonna be taking place. Michael is gonna be transported among with a whole lot of others. And of course, like other Halloween films, something will go wrong. Michael will be set free, and everything that Laurie has been planning on will be set into motion as Michael makes his way back home yet again. And I don't know if I want to go on with the story anymore. It really is, they attempt to do some different things in terms of the doctor, Sartan, who has been studying not only Michael but Laurie and this whole thing and trying to figure out Michael. There's in the film, moving towards the middle end, there's an interesting, meant to be an interesting twist I think it's the most absurd thing ever. I'm not going to reveal what that twist is, but I think it's just absolutely horrible and maybe the worst aspect of this entire film. But my thoughts, I wasn't happy 2 years ago when they announced this thing. And on July 4th, 2017, I actually made a video, a short video, just kind of venting. And because I had my own ideas and things that I had heard and I was hoping on would take place. Those things didn't take place, and so I vented, and that video is down below. The link is down below. As well as a horror movie podcast on Halloween 2018, which is absolutely fantastic to listen to, is down there below, and there's a whole slew of other links. But I'm going to try not to get all mixed up in my thoughts without really getting into spoiler territory. We sort of know the groundwork here. This is Halloween. And, by the end of the film, it's going to be Laurie against Michael, except unlike H2O, where Laurie's character is a lot different in that film in terms of how she's dealt with the trauma. This film, its climax, I will say, is much better than H2O. There's a lot of elements of this film that's much better than H2O. But the thing that drives me the most insane, though, I think, watching this, and it keeps this movie will never really be great. Number one, you're discounting an entire franchise, but whatever, okay? The reason they do that, the main reason, is because we have completely gotten rid of the relationship between Michael and Laurie being brother and sister. And that's all fine and well. From my understanding, John wasn't the most keen on that from the beginning, but he wasn't directing the sequel. So, his voice only went so far. And so, to see it from that point of view, I guess. But if you're going to do that, then you got to do something with it. It just seems like it's almost seems like the whole movie is still bent or predicated on this notion of Michael has got to find Laurie, as we've seen in every other single movie. And if you're going to take that one major piece of the plot structure, the structure of the entire franchise out, so you can begin anew, then you got to do something different. You got to create a way better reason why, other than just plain fate, why Michael and Laurie ultimately will clash by the end of this film. Now, I mentioned Horror Movie Podcast. In their podcast for this film, they mentioned something interesting, that apparently in the original cut of the film, there was actually a scene involving Laurie outside the prison moments before Michael's going to be transported. And her intent was to actually run the bus off the roadway somewhere, because her intent was to kill Michael. And they ultimately cut it out of the film because it didn't go over well with the test screenings, which just irritates me to no end, that you can be basically pushed around in your vision, or whatever that vision is. Because part of this narrative is this underlining idea that can a monster create another monster? And I don't know how far you actually run with that notion, but to actually have Laurie be the cause of Michael's release, that's genius. And I'll go a step beyond that, because this still has possibility. The way this film ends, and I'm not gonna go into that. All I'll say is, we all know the sequel's coming. The sequel is inevitable, which means more Michael. If you want to restore the damage that perhaps was done by cutting parts of the story out because it just wasn't going over well with people, there's still a good opportunity to sort of restore that idea by just making Laurie the reason that we have a sequel. And so if you haven't seen it, maybe that makes you curious now. But it's just so there's some moments that, man, I do sort of get in it. But there's a lot of this movie steals, well, I say steal, but it really borrows from the franchise in total. We see a lot of nods to almost, I think, probably every film in the franchise, including Rob Zombie's films. His 2 films have had a substantial impact on this film. As much as John Carpenter probably hates it or is bothered by it, I don't know. There's scenes lifted right out of Zombie's films in this film. So it's the violence level of we're not quite used to Michael being as violent, I guess. Some of the scenes are some of the most violent scenes, at least in terms of the original franchise. Rob's took it to a whole new level, his 2 films. But you can't ignore those 2 films. Those films have made an impact, and they are part of the franchise. And so it's there's a lot of interesting things here. The guy who plays Michael, I thought, did a fantastic job. Of course, the score, the cinematography. There's some nice shots going on. It just seems there's a lot I wish they would have done more with. I wish it just would have been a little bit more bold about who they were trying to be without being scared off by whatever test screenings, But anyways, so there's just a little bit of a rant, a little bit of the plot, I guess, and it is definitely a movie that ought not to be ignored. I've come a long ways in 2 years. I embrace, probably more aspects of this film that I've ever embraced now. It's not how I was 2 years ago. This film will still never reach the level of other films in the franchise do for me. But it does have some things going on that are awesome. And to hear John Carpenter once again, I mean, listen to that. I mean, and there's one in particular, there was a particular kill that involves a steel gate where somebody is ultimately impaled on it. And the score takes a turn right about there. That is just, man, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. But I don't know where my time is, so I'm going to leave it at there. This is Reviews at Midnight, of course, VHS82 apostrophe. Take a look at the links I put down below, and any comments, the like button. And as always, we leave off these things with Go Bill.